Fitter, faster, further, stronger, better. G'day runners, welcome to Running Alive. But what does it really mean to get better? In this video we answer a few questions on improving your running, provide some structure and examples to work from. First, let's consider whether we should raise the floor of our training or lift the roof. Long-term improvement will always win over short-term gains. But if you only have a few weeks out from your competition, you've got no choice but to work on the top end. That is, lift the roof. However, if you've got more time, then definitely raise the floor. And what's the point? Do you just want to be in the mix in only one or two key races, or do you always want to be in with a shot? To put it another way, do you want your bad days to be of a much higher standard, rather than just hoping you can get it all together every so often? But how? Well, the basic concept is we increase our chronic training load. So the higher the load of our regular training, the higher our floor is. Wait, but isn't that just base training? Well, yes and no, but it depends on what you mean by base training. Unlike what a lot of people think, base training is more than just lots of long, slow miles. I've developed a working definition of base training. The point of base training is to develop a well-balanced athlete capable of optimally responding to the competition-specific training. Let's put it another way. We raise the floor so we can build a higher roof. If we focus on raising the floor, we improve our base standard, reduce injury risk over the long term, and set the basis for even better top-level results. So what is this chronic load versus acute load anyway? And I'll link to a scientific review on chronic versus acute load and injury risk in the description below. Now think of chronic load encompassing more than a week. You take your load over a week to give you an idea to allow for the ebb and flow that you have from day to day. So the load over 4 to 6 weeks, that's your true chronic load. Of course, there will be variation in the daily load. That's a mark of good training programs. So long runs, recovery, intervals, strength training, all your training sessions, they provide a different load, and you do need the variety. Acute load is how impactful a single training session, a day, or even 2 days of training is. For improvement, we need acute loads to be above your chronic load. But the further away that acute load is from your chronic load, the higher your injury risk, and the higher the risk that your body is unable to adapt and absorb that training. On the flip side, you need days where the acute load is below your chronic workload, and that's to allow for the consolidation and adaptation to training. Is there a specific formula or metric to guide this? In short, no. There's some that help, and many coaches have tried to establish them. The TSS in Training Peaks is an example, and it does have its pros, but it doesn't cover everything. But what metric does anyway? But does that mean we just keep doing more and more? Again, yes and no. If we just simply keep upping and upping and upping, there's a point that the body can't handle and we reach diminishing returns. And to increase this to the max that is suitable, practical, and gets the results that I'm chasing, there's 4 key elements that I'm going to focus on. Know the risks. What can you handle? Develop versatility, and there's different ways to achieve the same goal. Knowing the risks is about knowing where your weak points are. Hill training might put your Achilles at risk, so you're going to be careful on your hill training. Or doing sprints at this stage may increase your injury risk. Extending out your long runs beyond a certain distance at this stage tends to leave you with some niggles. Know what will break you down rather than building you up. That is your risk. And 2, what can you handle? Understand what you can handle well, what you can increase. For others, some people can handle a good dose of interval training, so use that to your advantage. Knowing what you can handle means you can pick what you increase. Knowing what puts you at risk means what you need to be conservative on. Understand that, and you can increase that chronic workload. And develop versatility. Well, take the first 2 points and understand that variety will make you more well-rounded. So work on a bit of strength training so you can handle more training volume. Do some faster runs, do some slower runs, do some runs in between. Understand that some variation will leave you more rounded, will give you more avenues to increase your training, and if you can be more versatile, you'll have more ways to raise that floor. And number 4, there are different ways to achieve your goal. So if we take the marathon as an example, everyone says, do your long runs, a weekly long run. Maybe you don't respond well to that. Maybe extending that long run out to 30 kilometres is a problem for you. Maybe it leaves you injured. Maybe you don't have time. So instead of having that run going out to 3 hours, why don't we change that to 2 runs in a week of 2 hours? There's different ways of achieving it. Maybe adding in an extra higher intensity run is the way to go. Any high tensile activity, anything that requires you to generate some high force is in a way speed work. So it might be some plyometrics, some jumping, some box jumps, some skipping, some hopping. Maybe get onto the heavy weights, do some very heavy calf raises. There are different ways to achieve the same goal. Get creative, think about it, and you can find new ways to raise the bar, to raise that floor. Yeah, details matter. The way you do things is more important. The way you do things is more important than just what you do. For example, accumulate volume with relaxed running rather than forcing the volume up and forcing the speed. In my own training, I ended up having some trouble with a hip flexor. And looking back through the training loads, I had a couple of weeks where I increased the acute load a fair bit above the chronic load. And as a result, I paid the price with some mild injury, forcing me to back it off more than I wanted to. Hindsight tells me it would have been better off to be more conservative with the volume increases. Let's flip this around and look at a relative beginner. Say running 3 times a week. They may have a week where they do 3 runs, 2 of 15 minutes and 1 of 30 minutes. And if you hold this for about 4 weeks, that would be their chronic load, and they want to increase their training. A good way would be to add 5 minutes to one of those 15-minute runs each week, and that would be an appropriate progression. It would be increasing the acute load above the chronic at a level that allows for improvement without adding too much risk at all. However, if we were to jump straight into a 60-minute run, then there is a substantial increase in injury risk. Now I've got some new running goals. With the lack of races, I certainly have plenty of time to work on raising the floor. And this is my new running goal: to raise the training floor as high as possible for the remainder of 2020. This will involve pushing that chronic training load up. There is a balancing act against forcing it up too quickly. Would this approach help your running? Let me know. Keep on running, runners.